their power from spiritual development and humanitarian passion will be catapulted into the limelight. These will be the heroines and heroes of the new age that is being birthed before our eyes. Okay? That's pretty powerful, isn't it? And now I don't know, how true this is. I think things are as true as you believe them to be, but all I know is that when I read this, and this was like 2 pages long, I just cut and pasted a paragraph that I wanted to share with you, I was just going like this. Like it viscerally felt like it's happening, and that's real. And I don't know about all of you, I was just telling Marie, I feel an acceleration going on inside of me, and I see it going on with my colleagues and friends and clients. So I did want to share that with you. And so, my sense is that this is a group of people that we're sharing this sort of consciousness together. And I want to get a sense of commonality here. How many of you in this room are in the helping profession in some fashion? Yeah, the majority, right? How many of you have ever suffered from any kind of profound disappointment? Right? How about any kind of loss? Loss of a home, loss of someone you love, loss of a job? Yeah. How many have ever experienced the fear of the unknown? Yeah. And last question, how many of us in this room can look back in hindsight at a time in your life that things were challenging that you now appreciate, and you can see all the lessons learned and the blessings that sprouted from that experience? Yeah. See this? We all have this in common, right? It's a human experience. So I was going to talk to you about the title of my talk to Connie was The Courage to Face the Unknown, on the heels of that. And then I switched it to Living Proof, Celebrating the Gifts That Come Wrapped in Sandpaper, which is the title of the book. But actually, the two titles are really related, right? Because when we have experiences that feel like sandpaper, it requires us to have the courage to face the unknown, right? So, I was going to talk to you about some experiences with clients through the years, but then I got a download last night, y'all, and I was looking back into my emails, and I came across some stuff that I wrote about an experience I had several years ago that I haven't shared in a very long time, and I'd like to share it with you tonight. And it's about one experience in my life that felt like sandpaper for sure. It's not the chapter in the book. The chapter I wrote in the book was about my first marriage. That's one example, but it's too juicy to let the cat out of the bag. So if you choose to walk out with it tonight, you'll see for yourself. This was an experience I had on the heels of that marriage in my next relationship, which was a 3.5-year relationship, which really felt like a divorce when I had the courage, in fact, to end that relationship. And it was very, very painful. And you know how sometimes when you're in the depths of sort of despair is when magic happens the most? And when I thought back of what I wanted to share with you tonight, there's a lot of tips and tools and resources that we have within that we can access when we are about to go through transition. But I'm just going to share 3 with you tonight that pertain to my story that I'm going to share with you. One is the importance of solitude, right? When we're going through these kinds of experiences. The decision to be still and to give ourselves time to attend to the confusion, to attend to the grief, whatever is coming up. And the other is reflection, the time to contemplate, the time to reevaluate what we just experienced. And the last is receptivity. The extent to which we allow ourselves to give to ourselves and to accept love and wisdom from others, yeah? So in this story I'm about to share with you, those are 3 things that I didn't even know I was doing, but I did. And as a result, because of that, and what helped me through that, was really, I don't know if this has ever happened to you either, but when you're going through something really challenging, where you start to connect with whatever it is, that I call the divine, source, God, whatever, right? So I felt like I really was accompanied and really embraced by the divine. And it came in the form of a being that lived over 100 years ago. And as my grandmother said, I'm going to tell you a story. And this is the story about this being. How many of you in this room know who Rainer Maria Rilke was? Hi. Okay, about 5 or 6 of you. Rainer Maria Rilke. You can't? Really? Can somebody turn, I think it's on the right-hand side, up a little bit? I know. Yeah? Okay. Is this better? Ooh.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow. Did you hear anything for the last 5 minutes? Okay. Rainer Maria Rilke. How many of you have heard of him? Okay, only a few. Let me just share with you that my story is I'm going to basically be sharing this extraordinary person that he was born in 1875 and in Prague, and he studied art and literature and music and philosophy. And he got married, had a child, moved to Paris, and he was known in Europe as a writer, as a poet, and as really a mentor. And he died in 1927. So he lived from 1875 to 1927, so he's 52 when he died, okay? So, here's what happened. During this period of time when I let this man go in my life, and it was a painful time, I sort of hibernated for about 4 months in solitude, right? Rainer Maria Rilke came into my consciousness, into my awareness, 5 times in 8 days. I never knew who he was either. The first time was, when I broke up with this guy, his birthday was the next week, and I still loved him, but I just knew I needed to let us both go. And I wanted to get him a birthday card, and it was like, what kind of birthday card do I get him? It's kind of a strange time that we were both in. And I found a card that was so beautiful, it took my breath away, and it was perfect. And this is what the card said. Now, let me just share. So he lost me, he lost his home, and he lost his job. Okay, so that's what I was trying to give him a message on his birthday during this time in his life. The card said, I beg you to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers because you would not be able to know or live them now. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without ever noticing it, live your way into the answer. Okay? I thought that was so profound. I bought like 10 cards, okay? I put one on my board. I said, oh my gosh, I want to share this with everybody that I love. Okay. So a couple days later, I'm in my room, and you know how you have the stack of books that you say you're going to get to and you never do, or it takes a long time to get there? So next to my bed were 2 books that I grabbed from below that a client that I stopped working with gave me as a gift when we ended our working relationship together. And one of the books I noticed I just started picking up, and I started reading the book. And I'm reading the book, and it's talking about solitude and the importance of solitude, particularly during times, where you're walking through something that's painful. And on page 35, that quote that I just read you on the card shows up on the page. And I'm like, oh my God, that's just the card I bought 2 days ago. So I look at the book was called Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. I run in the other room, and I look at the card, Rainer Maria Rilke. And I thought, that's interesting. Right? The second time it comes up in 2 days. That's interesting. This book is about this thick. And a 19-year-old boy in Europe was writing to Rainer Maria Rilke asking for personal and professional advice. And these were the letters he wrote back to this young man. And I have to share with you, I hope all of you, after you buy this book, that you go out and buy that book. Because it is for, I would say, anybody over 15 to 95, it's magnificent. And by the way, it was written, these letters were written to him between 1903 and 1908. And I'm going to read you some excerpts from the book. In the book, the young man who received it said, he says, when a truly great and unique spirit speaks, the lesser ones must be silent. And he was right, and that's why I want to share some of this with you, so you get a feel of this man. He wrote these words over 100 years ago, okay? So on challenge, Raina Maria Rilke says, we can be sure of very little, but the need to court struggle is a surety that will not leave us. The fact that something is difficult must be one more reason to do it. It is good to be lonely, for being lonely is not easy. To love is also good, for love can sometimes be difficult. Nearly everything that matters is a challenge, and everything matters. We must embrace struggle. Every living thing conforms to it. Everything in nature grows and struggles in its own way, establishing its own identity, insisting on it at all costs against all resistance. And on solitude, okay, on solitude, he says, I know of no other advice than this. Go within and scale the depths of your being, from which your very life springs forth. Have a pact with aloneness. Usually most of us run away from that, right? He says, have a pact with aloneness. This pact will be your support and solace, even in the midst of unfamiliar situations. It is though that aloneness that you will find, it is through this aloneness that you will find all your paths. Okay, so number one, I find the card. Number two, I find letters to a young poet. You ready for the third time? This is all within a week. Okay, so the other thing I'm doing besides chilling out and trying to recover from all this is I decide to, redecorate, which is not uncommon too, right? So I go in my guest room and I take all the books off the shelf and I'm going to paint the whole room, and I paint the whole room, and then when I'm ready to put the books back up, I kid you not, a book literally falls to the floor. Falls on the floor right in front of me. There must have been over 100 books on the shelf. And the book says, Love and Other Difficulties by Raina Maria Rilke. And I opened this book that I didn't even know I had, and it has a note from my brother, who wrote to me and my ex-husband, which is stories about in this book, and he said, I hope that perusing this book gives you comfort at this time. Okay? All right, now I've gone from, that's interesting, to, that's a major coincidence. Oh my God, right? Okay. On love, this is what this amazing human being said. For one human being to love another is perhaps the most difficult task of all, the epitome, the ultimate test. It is that striving for which all other strivings is merely preparation. And on codependence, again, written over 100 years ago, we call it codependence today. This is what he says. Young people often err since it is their nature to be impatient. They throw themselves at each other when love comes upon them. They fragment themselves in all of their disarray and confusion. But what of their future? Everyone loses himself for the sake of the other, and loses the other and many others that yet have wished to come. They lose perspective and limit opportunities. They simply surrender themselves and leave no room for aloneness. Okay, fourth time. Ready for fourth time? Day, 5 or 6. I am sitting at my desk, and it's late at night, and I'm trying to, now I'm in the reflective phase, right? I'm contemplating what I learned from this relationship. And I'm doing everything that is really hard and painful. I'm taking out all the sentiments of our 3.5-year relationship together, the cards, the gifts, and I start writing down all of the things that I will remember, all of the things that I appreciated about this man in our relationship, and all of the things that were difficult and that I learned are not for me, that I need to let go. And I also found the cards, and one of the cards went with a gift. His first gift to me was a bracelet with a little heart, and there was a picture, a black and white picture of a woman inside the heart, and on the back was an inscription. And there was a little piece of paper with a description of the stone hanging from the bracelet and the inscription. Ready for this? The inscription says, love consists in this, two solitudes coming together and greeting one another. Rilke. Now, this is 11 o'clock at night, now I'm screaming. Now I'm literally by myself, out loud, going, oh my God, the spirit of this man is living in my apartment. Like, what other explanation, right? But certainly, by that point, I was really clear that I was being really supported and really, really given a message here. On the topic of, before I get to the fifth one, on the topic of gender equality, again, 1905, okay? Truly prophetic, he says, Perhaps the sexes are more closely related than one would think. Perhaps the great renewal of the world will consist of this, that men and women, freed of all confused feelings and desires, shall no longer seek each other as opposites, but simply as members of a family and neighbors, and will unite as human beings in order to simply, earnestly, patiently, and jointly bear the heavy responsibilities of sexuality that has been entrusted to them. And he says, the simple humanity of women, brought about through pain and abasement, shall then come to light when the conversion of her ultra-feminism will have been stripped off, transforming her status in the world. One day, the girl and the woman shall exist with her name no longer contrasted to the masculine. It shall have a meaning in and of itself. It shall not bring to mind complement or limitation, only life and being, the feminine human being. Okay? So the fifth and last time that week, I'm in the express bus. Have any of you ever lived in Chicago? Okay, Chicago, express bus, that's how we get around. So I'm going to my office. It's a cold day, and the bus is full, and I'm sitting in the front and I'm sitting down. And a young man is standing right in front of me, holding onto the pole, reading a book right in my face, Letters to a Young Poet. And he must have been 19, 20 years old, okay? So that's my Rilke story. And so in sharing that with you, this relationship in my life, again, was a time that felt like sandpaper, and I implemented, and without even knowing it, I went deep, I went quiet, I went into solitude, I reflected all the lessons I learned from that relationship, and I received the sort of gentle, attendance from myself and the divine which I call Source, and Source came in the form of this being called Rainer Maria Rilke. And so I invite all of us in this room to truly, instead of washing it away, wishing it away, resisting it, to really embrace and attend to our fears and our challenges for the sake of us and the sake of the well-being of all of those, for many of you in the helping professions who come to us for support and guidance in facing their own. And remembering it's that in all of that lies the bedrock truly of wisdom, and in so much grace, and in our ability to hear it and receive it and embrace it, we move into ourselves, moving into our own living proof of that which is transcendent. Thank you so much. Wow.